And as we know, Conor McGregor, who recently got married, who's kind of had a transformation, he went down to Peru or somewhere and he did ayahuasca and he went on a spiritual journey. He's a changed man. He's born again.
And I'm saved. I am healed.
Hey, fair play to the guy. Fair play to the guy. And I'll tell you what, when you do see clips of him online, he does look healthier. He does look less puffy. And you do see clips of him out there training. So the man's getting ready for something. And a lot of people, because obviously I have a podcast and we'll be back on Monday, by the way, me and Felder, so tune in for that. A lot of people are like, yeah, McGregor's done. McGregor's done. Listen, a lot can change. The man's still only, I think he's 37 years old, okay? So he's not like he's that old yet. Yeah, he's at the tail end of his career. Even though, like Mike Tyson, he said he wants to do this for the rest of his life. He's at the tail end of his career. But 3 years, 4 years away, right? A lot can change if you lock in, if you get disciplined, if you get rid of all the bad habits, if you abandon all the yes men, if you get rid of all the distractions and you get in the gym, it's not unthinkable to think that Conor McGregor could get just somewhere near the form that he had when he made his rise to.
I think, Dana White said it best, back then. Not only was I burning some premium jet fuel, but I was too much man for Conor, too big, what is he gonna do? Outstrike me? I think I would have been like a bad style from him. They probably wanted easier fights from him at that time. Someone where he could get his air beneath his sails because it wasn't going to be me. And I still think to this day, Conor knows it. And he don't like that fight. She'll talk about everybody else but me because he knows I'll snipe his ass quick. That little lucky left shit he does ain't going to work with me, a premium striker, brother. I'm going to see that shit a mile away and slap him in the face. So I don't think Chris Brandon ever would have been good. I'm going to beat the fucking dog shit out of him, straight up stand-up style.
Are you surprised?
None of that grappling. I'm just going to get in your face, knee your ribs, elbow your fucking face. It's going to be a fight, man.
Conor McGregor still has no named opponent for the White House spectacle, yet somehow he dominates the headlines again. Nothing is signed, no contract sealed, no official confirmation that he will even step inside the cage, but the noise keeps rising. Some insist the card is incomplete without him, others swear it survives if he vanishes. Either way, the shadow of McGregor hangs over everything, and no one can stop saying his name.
I apologize, you'll probably remember who it was, where you talked about the Chandler-Conor McGregor fight, and you're like, that's old news. Chandler comes out and says he's going to keep optimism about it. You, to be completely transparent at this point, as much as you want to be at least, how empty slate is that card? Or do you already have in your head what you're hoping to happen, and then you just kind of got to make it happen? Like where are you in the development of the card? Because I know that's a massive ordeal for all parties.
So my entire focus right now is on the launch this weekend. I got boxing on Friday, the UFC on Saturday. Sunday, I'm watching the Patriots go to the Super Bowl.
Hell yeah.
And then Monday, we're all in on the White House fight. We don't have anything laid out. Nothing. It'll all start Monday.
Okay. All right.
And no disrespect to Chandler. We love Chandler. Chandler's one of the... You don't have enough time in your show for me to talk to you about how awesome Chandler is. And you know how I feel about Conor and everything that he's done for the sport and this company. But yeah, that's not the fight.
Dana White views the White House event as more than just another date on the calendar. He sees a moment that could carve its own chapter into Ultimate Fighting Championship history. When he referenced the countless blockbuster nights already delivered, even milestones like UFC 200, he wasn't reminiscing, he was drawing a line. This show, he insists, carries a different weight, not because of the fights alone, but because of where it would unfold and what that stage symbolizes. Still, behind the bold vision lies uncertainty. Negotiations grind on, plans shift quietly, and nothing is finalized as complex logistics threaten to stall the dream at any moment.
Well, we're going to figure that all out this week. But when you look at, this is like a one-of-one event. It's something that will never happen again. And we building this card, we have this video rendering of what it looks like. We literally have the trees that are in the the south lawn. We'll know exactly where the sun is until it sets. So all the logistics are done, and now it's time to. We believe that this is going to be the most watched UFC event ever.
I mean, you've had UFC 200, 300, 100. The Sphere To say that this card is going to top all of those, be bigger, more important, those are some big words right there. Do you believe this could be the type of event that almost kickstarts, maybe similar to what happened coming out of COVID, that maybe kickstarts a new era of fandom for this sport?
Yeah, it's going to introduce a lot of.
Then Dana White shifted the focus to what this could mean for the fighters themselves, and the tone changed. He pointed out that many of them have never even stepped inside the White House, let alone imagined fighting on its grounds. That alone, he implied, rewires how a competitor views the opportunity. This is no ordinary booking, no routine payday. It is a setting that forces perspective to evolve overnight. Dana believes this is the rare kind of event where the experience fuses with achievement, where simply being part of it becomes stitched into a fighter's legacy forever. When you drop a combat sport into a place loaded with symbolism and power, the ripple effect extends far beyond the usual fanfare. It draws in outsiders, skeptics, decision-makers, and history itself, turning every punch thrown into something that feels heavier than gold.
That have never seen it before. And when you talk about like me, my executive team, the staff that works here, the media that covers us, and the fighters, this is going to be the most unique, amazing, night of our entire careers. So, the fighters are walking from the Oval Office, and I bet a lot of the people that cover the sport and are fans of the sport probably never even been to the White House before, and obviously the fighters. So this is a really special one-of-one night. And when we go to do something, I like to deliver, and I like to deliver big. So we are, it's going to be special. And now this
Exciting
week,
times.
yeah, actually, fly in he lives in Texas, so he's coming in, and we're going to have him here for a few days, and we're going to start hammering out this card.
He never mentioned Conor directly, not with certainty, but others inside the Ultimate Fighting Championship ecosystem certainly did. When Chael Sonnen spoke about Conor McGregor, it didn't sound like a fight hovering on the edge of a signature. It felt scattered, like multiple storylines colliding at once with no clear ending in sight. Chael made it clear that nothing about this situation is locked in, nothing guaranteed. Every version of the comeback depends on another domino falling first, an injury clearing, a deal closing, a card finalizing, something unseen shifting behind the curtain. That alone separates this from the usual redemption arc fans expect. This isn't a clean return with a countdown clock ticking toward fight night. It feels tangled, unstable, almost volatile. He warned that trying to predict the outcome right now is a dangerous game, because the ground keeps moving. One rumor sparks another, one plan contradicts the last, and certainty dissolves as quickly as it forms. By laying out every possible path, each conditional, each fragile, he painted a picture of controlled chaos. The message wasn't subtle. This isn't a straight road back to glory. It's a maze, and at any moment, the exit could disappear.
Now, I'm not predicting that for you. When we do talk about the White House, and we've got every level of crazy at play here. We've got Conor McGregor returning. We've got Conor McGregor returning for a title fight. We've got Conor McGregor returning in a weight class that doesn't yet exist. We've got Conor McGregor returning. The only problem is he needs a call from Ari Emanuel. We got Conor McGregor returning. The only problem is Conor McGregor is not under contract with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Like, everything about this has gotten weird. We got John Jones versus Piera. Biggest fight in the history of humanity. John Jones needs a hip replacement. John Jones is going to play flag football as opposed to fight at the White House. Like, we're in this spot. We're in like this Wild West in terms of predictions. And I do think that Ilia Topuria versus Islam is the biggest fight that we could make. For the most part. There's a broad stroke on that, right? Jones versus Pierre. If we're just having fun, fights that we could make. Jones versus Aspinall. Pierre versus Aspinall. Like, if we've got this.
He also warned how dangerously easy it is to assume fighters know far more than they actually do, admitting he has fallen into that exact trap himself. The illusion is seductive. If Conor McGregor is being linked to Michael Chandler, then surely both men must already be briefed, aligned, and simply waiting for the perfect moment to unveil the news. But Chael Sonnen pushed back hard on that narrative. He argued that, more often than fans realize, fighters discover the direction of their own careers the same way the public does, through sudden reports, breaking headlines, and whispers that gain traction overnight. There is no secret war room where every detail is shared in advance, no guaranteed master plan quietly unfolding behind closed doors. In fact, the reality can be far messier and far less controlled. And that detail changes everything here. If even the fighters are reacting in real time, then the buzz surrounding Conor may not be as advanced as it appears. The speculation might feel organized, almost inevitable, but beneath the surface it could still be fluid, fragile, and unfinished. That means what sounds like certainty could actually be smoke, and what looks like a scheduled collision might still be nothing more than shifting conversation.
Wand, but in the scope of being realistic, I do not think that you're going to get Islam versus Ilya at 155, and more importantly, if Ilya and Islam do fight, when that day comes, I think it should be at 170, because a big piece of the story is champ status. And the only way you preserve that opportunity is for Ilya to go up. Islam also came out early on, before he had fought with Jack, captured the 170-pound title. And he said, I'm going to do both. I'm going to grab the belt at 70. I'm going to come right back to 55. I'm going to fight at both. As soon as he made 170 and he felt what that was like to have the same experience without the torture of pulling off those extra 15 pounds, he came out and said, no, I'm never going back. I believe him. That sounds right. But Chandler appeared to not know. He appears to be very open. And one mistake that I have made a number of times in the sport is to think that the athletes know, but they're keeping a secret. Well, Chandler knows what's going on. Chandler knows whether he's fighting Conor. But Chandler and Conor are going to preserve this and reveal it to the media when they're ready. Time after time, that just turns out to not be the case. The guys just genuinely don't know.
Ariel Helwani didn't sugarcoat it. He said the entire Conor McGregor situation, especially tied to a potential Ultimate Fighting Championship White House card, feels questionable at best. He reached back to 2020, when Conor publicly flirted with retirement over terms he considered unfavorable, reminding everyone how quickly momentum can stall when business doesn't align. Back then, the issue wasn't desire. Conor wanted to fight, but the circumstances left him sidelined without the stage or leverage he expected. Helwani used that history as a warning sign. McGregor doesn't move unless the deal makes sense to him. And that brings the money into sharp focus. A White House event sounds historic, even untouchable, but history alone doesn't replace revenue streams. McGregor remains the biggest pay-per-view draw the sport has ever seen, a guaranteed spike in buys whenever his name tops a card. Remove the traditional PPV structure, and suddenly the equation changes dramatically. The UFC can argue brand exposure, global headlines, and long-term prestige, but Conor's track record shows he studies numbers, points, percentages. He's not just chasing moments, he's measuring value. Without the promise of massive pay-per-view upside, the spectacle becomes complicated. And if the financial architecture doesn't match his expectations, history or not, the fight may never leave the negotiation table.
About to get really interesting with Conor McGregor in the UFC. It's about to get really interesting, and it's starting to feel like pandemic 2020 vibes. And what I mean by that is, do you remember there was a time, I remember Amanda Nunes fought Felicia Spencer, and I remember he was going off on Twitter. He was talking about, F this, I'm going to retire, all this stuff. And I remember he called me, and I wrote a whole article for ESPN.com. He retired in 2020 because they wouldn't give him a fight. And they wouldn't give him a fight until they could have some kind of attendance. And that attendance came 2021 in Abu Dhabi, January of 2021 against Dustin Poirier, if you remember. They didn't want to have him at the Apex in front of no one. And so I remind you, when that White House card comes around, June 14th, there will be no pay-per-view. There will be no gate. And what I'm hearing is there's going to be no sponsors as well. So it's going to be it's going to be gigantic as far as brand awareness and whatnot. But as far as sponsors on the cage, it's not going to be like that because White House and you know, it gets a little tricky.
Patricio Freire zeroed in on one word that changes everything: leverage. He argued that Conor McGregor doesn't sit at the same table as most fighters. He owns a different seat entirely. The attention he commands isn't comparable, it's gravitational. Cameras follow him, headlines orbit him, and that spotlight becomes currency. With that kind of pull, he can demand terms others wouldn't dare whisper, especially if the structure drifts away from the traditional pay-per-view engine that once fueled his biggest nights. If the numbers no longer align with his expectations, if the upside shrinks or the model shifts in a way that dulls his earning power, Freire believes Conor won't hesitate to resist. He could stall negotiations, reshape the terms, or simply walk away. That's the power of leverage when you know your value. But here's the twist. He also suggested that the Ultimate Fighting Championship isn't as dependent on McGregor as it once was. The company has evolved, diversified, adjusted its revenue streams. In other words, the balance of power may not be what it used to be. So now the tension sharpens. If Conor pushes back, will the UFC bend, or has the machine grown strong enough to move forward without him?
Person whose comments on all of this fighter pay stuff that I care about, and that's Conor McGregor. Well, there's two people. There's Dana White and there's Conor McGregor. And the reason I care about Conor McGregor's thoughts on this is because he's the only one with leverage. When he talks about on a Roblox stream, my contract is null and void, he's the only one with the ability to go, no, you actually do need to pay me a different amount because I'm the only one who actually sells pay-per-views. Pay-per-views were down bad last year. I can't imagine there were many champions who were making a ton of money by selling pay-per-views. The UFC obviously wasn't making a ton of money by selling pay-per-views and has pivoted away from that model. And so there's nobody out there who's really going to be too hard done if all of a sudden the UFC is like, we're moving away from pay-per-view. There's going to be some extra money and not ask about it ever again, right? Volk was on talking to you and he kind of didn't know what's going on, but is Volk really going to be the one to rock the boat and do it? There's only one person who stands to benefit in a major way from pay-per-views in 2026 or previously in 2025, and that's Conor.
On the White House side of the equation, Patricio Freire suggested there's a very real possibility that Conor McGregor isn't on the card at all. Not because the fans wouldn't erupt for it, not because the spotlight wouldn't intensify, but because the math might not satisfy the man at the center of it. If the Ultimate Fighting Championship presents a figure that falls short of Conor's internal valuation, Freire believes he could simply walk. No drama, no drawn-out saga, just a hard stop. That's the tension hovering over this entire spectacle. This isn't as simple as plugging a superstar into a historic venue and watching the numbers explode. It's a high-stakes negotiation where symbolism clashes with spreadsheets, and prestige competes with profit margins. Freire's point cut deeper than hype. This isn't about desire, it's about alignment. If the structure doesn't reward McGregor the way he expects, history alone won't be persuasive. And in that scenario, the grand White House vision continues without its most polarizing name, proving that sometimes the biggest obstacle to a blockbuster isn't opposition across the cage, it's the terms behind the curtain.
So when Conor McGregor comes out and says, I need to renegotiate my deal because this is now null and void, that's the only one that's going to have any waves, ripples, anything. There is a realistic scenario where when it comes to the White House, Conor McGregor is the one that says no, right? We're acting like it's just going to be the Dana White's going to be like, do I trust Conor McGregor? What if they come to Conor McGregor with a number that's not sufficiently offset?
Oh, yeah.
Because this pay-per-view is not in place anymore, and he says, take a hike. I'm not fighting for that. I never fought for that. I stand to make so much more money than that, and you're trying to... And we're also in a scenario where the UFC might not need Conor McGregor as much as they used to, which is an even more fascinating thing, right? Because pay-per-view doesn't exist, do you necessarily need somebody like Conor McGregor as much as you needed him when you...
Michael Bisping unpacked the sudden revival of a showdown between Jorge Masvidal and Conor McGregor, and according to him, the logic was ruthless and simple. Once Michael Chandler drifted out of the immediate picture and Dana White had already shut down other routes, the options thinned fast. If Conor lands on a White House card, Bisping argued, it can't be against a fringe contender, it has to be a recognizable, marketable force, and Masvidal checks that box cleaner than almost anyone. From a stylistic angle, it's violent chemistry. From a political and promotional standpoint, it's combustible theater. Jorge carries viral knockouts, unforgettable moments, and a personality built for bright lights. He's navigated chaos before, stood in massive arenas, and thrived when the spotlight burned hottest. Bisping made it clear, this card leans towards spectacle over rankings, and in the spectacle department, Jorge delivers. Meanwhile, Chandler insisted his chapter with Conor ignited during their time on The Ultimate Fighter never truly closed. The tension simmered weekly and never found resolution in the cage. Yet he also acknowledged the weight of fame, the reevaluation that comes with reaching the summit. Chandler believes Conor is recalibrating, sharpening his purpose, preparing to return with intention, perhaps opposite him on the biggest stage imaginable. For now, nothing is signed, no opponent inked, the board's still blank. But McGregor isn't idle. He's already grinding in the gym, training as if the call is imminent. Speculation swirls, certainty hides, and until the UFC declares it official, everything remains fluid.